remind people that speaker view will help you be able to see a larger view of the PowerPoint she shares on the screen.
Yep. All right. And I'm gonna, whoops, I did not want to do that. I want to present. Okay. So I have the Navigating Special Ed Resource PowerPoint up. Can everybody see that? Is it thumbs up? Good. Yep. All right. Good. All right. So in your Blue Parent Record file folder, so one of the things everybody received prior to today, except for one individual, I know we have one individual that will receive her Blue Parent Record file folder on Monday. But this is what we'll be going through today. So make sure you have this with you in front of you because we're going to spend some time learning about the different types of resources that are in this Blue Parent Record file that everyone received. In the very front of the Blue Parent Record file, you will find a PowerPoint. So I printed out the 3-slide PowerPoint. So if you're interested in taking notes, that's in there. And then the top 10 resources for families is another handout in the front that we'll be taking a look at as we go through the presentation today. So with that being said, let's get started. And Jackie, are you recording?
Yes, I am.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay, yeah. Great. Okay, thanks. All right, so today's session outcomes are as follows. So what I'm hoping to do in the time that we have together is to build some awareness around some of the key resources to use and share with families. I hope to demonstrate the use of some of these resources as well as organizational tools. And I really encourage you all to share ideas and learn from one another. I have my own experience of being a parent of a young person with a disability, having gone through the special education process with him, but also having gone through the special ed process with his twin brothers, his younger twin brothers, who both of them had IEPs at one time as well. So 3 out of my 4 boys at one time had IEPs, and they were very, very different from one another in many ways, but also very similar. But so please feel free to, as we're going through this, to share your ideas and share your experiences, because I want this to be a conversation as we move forward. And I hope, like I said, to learn from one another. As Jackie has said, if you'd like to, raise your hand, or if you'd like to put the question in the chat, Jackie will be watching the chat for me. So, all right. So we're going to get started first with, I just want to do a video on the introduction to special education. One of the things that is really important is for families to know, understand, and feel comfortable with the IEP process. So I'm going to pull away, and for some reason the link in there is not working, so I'm going to bring this up on YouTube. So we're going to spend some time watching this video. Just to kind of get things warmed up. Let's make sure we skip the ads. Oh, wait a minute. That is not the right video. Let's try this again. Hang on. Technology is great when it works perfectly.
Yeah, sometimes, right?
All right.
It's hard to hear. We are still unable to hear it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's try that again. We're gonna stop the share. All right, and we're gonna go back into the share. And let's try this again. Start from the beginning.
Some children who are having problems in school may need extra help through special education.
Can you hear that?
Special education is for children who
Yes,
have a
we can.
disability. If your child has a disability, special education can help your child learn. We work with one child at a time, your child. This program is an introduction to special education for you and your child, and is brought to you by the Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educator Initiative and the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Special education means instruction that is specially designed to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. Special education means adapting what a child learns and how he or she learns it. Federal laws require public schools to give special education to children who need it. Your local school district can help you find the most effective educational options for your child. We'd like to show you how the special education process works. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, states that all children with disabilities must receive a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. This means that special education is provided at no cost to families. What is appropriate for one child will likely be different than what is appropriate for others. And special education meets the unique needs of each child. All services are delivered with the intent of helping you to prepare your child for further education, employment, and independent living. Special education is not just a curriculum, but a process of determining what is appropriate for your child and then providing it in the most meaningful way. This is what makes special education individualized for each child. Special education is a 5-step process, beginning with referral. You may already know or suspect that your child may need special education services. A referral may come from parents or guardians like yourself, medical professionals, teachers, or someone from the school district itself. Schools often identify preschool children with special needs through early community screenings. Anyone who cares about the child can make a referral for special education. You as a parent can send a referral letter to the school district's special education director or principal. Include the date, the specific phrase, "This is a referral for special education," your child's first and last name, their birth date, and a brief explanation of why you believe special education may be needed for your child. The second step is evaluating whether your child qualifies for special education. Existing information may be enough for you and the school to make that determination. You may be asked to share information about your child. Tests may be conducted, or your child may be observed to get a complete picture. You must be notified about any tests in writing, and your permission must be given before they are done. The third step is the IEP team meeting, or series of meetings, to discuss the evaluation and make recommendations for placement. You are an important team member. Your attendance is crucial because you are an expert about your child. You have the right to ask that this meeting be held at a time when you are able to attend. As an equal partner on the team, you're encouraged to actively participate, voice concerns, and ask questions. At the IEP team meeting, any results of tests will be shared, and your child's strengths and needs will be discussed. If it is decided that your child is eligible for special education, the team will provide an evaluation report and prepare a written plan. You may need more time to read the report and talk with others before you feel comfortable with your child's evaluation or writing the educational plan, called the IEP. This is normal. Ask the school personnel to wait or set up another meeting until you are ready for the next step. We will talk about the IEP in more detail later in the video. The fourth step in the process is placement, based on your child's IEP and taking into account what your child should be learning. The setting with the most appropriate special education and related services is called the Least Restrictive Environment, or LRE. A child with a disability will ideally attend the same school as children without disabilities. Sometimes this isn't appropriate, but the team will strive for the least restrictive environment as close as possible to home. After the IEP meeting, you will be asked to sign consent before your child receives special education for the first time. All school staff must follow the IEP. Throughout the year, you will receive reports from the school about your child's progress towards his or her IEP goals. However, your child's teachers will also want to communicate with you along the way. Be available and stay involved. This is a good way to share daily concerns, stay informed, and build positive relationships with the people who care for your child every day. The final step is an ongoing one, the annual review. Your child's IEP will be reviewed yearly to determine if services are appropriate, if the goals are being reached or should be changed, and if any additional needs have occurred. This ensures that your child is receiving the best possible combination of services to help him or her achieve their personal best. In addition, each special education student is reevaluated for eligibility at least once every 3 years, unless you and the school agree not to hold an evaluation. The school district has 15 business days after receiving a referral to send a request for your signed consent to evaluate your child. After you send the school your written permission, the school has 60 calendar days to complete the evaluation and hold an IEP team meeting to determine if the child is eligible for special education services. After that, the school has an additional 30 days in which to complete an IEP and offer placement. You will receive plenty of information about this process. It is a good idea to start a file to contain the paperwork. The Individualized Education Program, or IEP, is the heart of your child's special education. A team of many concerned people will participate in your child's IEP. This is called the IEP team and includes a local educational agency representative, or LEA. This is usually a school district professional who has the authority to say what the school can provide to your child. This person might be a principal or a school psychologist. Other people on the team are you, your child's regular education teacher, a special education teacher, and other people invited by you or the school who care about your child or have special expertise. Your child, if 14 years of age, must be invited. The purpose of the IEP team is to evaluate your child for eligibility for special education, determine your child's educational needs, recommend placement, and review the IEP to ensure that present and future needs are met. Classes and related services beyond the normal school year may be recommended by the IEP team. This is not summer school and may have a more flexible and varied schedule. These services are considered if the child may lose skills when school is out, or when emerging skills, behavior, or physical problems need to be addressed throughout the summer or other school vacation time. These services will be written in the IEP. Sometimes you may not agree with other members of the IEP team. The good news is there is a plan for resolving your differences. Informal means of resolution include discussing your concerns with the individual staff or even writing a letter to the school. You may request another IEP team meeting, and you may ask for a trained facilitator who does not work for the school. Mediation is also available and often helps both parties find solutions. You also have a right to formally disagree by requesting a due process hearing before a judge. If you think the school has not followed special education laws, you may file a complaint to the State Department of Public Instruction. All children deserve an educational program which helps them to become the best that they can be. Remember, you are a full and equal partner through the entire special education process. Be sure you know your rights in the special education process and the people with whom you can work with to best meet your child's needs. As an expert about your child, your input and participation is crucial to your child's success in school. Together, we can make it happen, one child at a time. For more information, please contact your local school district, Cooperative Educational Service Agency, the Wisconsin statewide Parent Educator Initiative, or other parent advocacy groups, such as Wisconsin Facets, to assist you with any questions you may have.
Cheri, we have a question in the chat.
You're muted, Cheri.
Yep, thanks. I had muted myself just so everything was perfectly quiet here. So I saw the question was, does ESY start at age 3 or kindergarten? ESY is for students age 3 through 21. And as the video had said, you look at whether or not the student regresses over, and there has to be evidence. So for instance, a 3-year-old that is just starting, let's say after Easter, spring break, and you have school every day, you actually have to have evidence that that children regress or lose some skills over a vacation period of time, and the amount that they lose is such that it takes longer for them to catch up and be back than it would an average any other student. Because if you think about summer vacations, for instance, a lot of our students do lose some skills and some ability over the summer. And that's why oftentimes in September, there's a lot of review that a lot of our teachers will do, because we know there is some regression for all people when you have a substantial period of time where you're not learning, you're not participating in school. But for a student with a disability, it may take you much longer than, let's say, the 3-4 weeks in September. Maybe it takes till November or something, depending upon what the skill is, for the student to regain those skills that they had when they left in June. So typically our school districts do collect data in order to make that decision, okay? So that's one example. If a student is suddenly developing a new skill, so it's an emerging skill, and if the IEP team feels that skill is so important that this break in the summer, if we don't continue working on that skill, the student will lose that skill. There may be a reason to have extended school year for that student for that particular goal and skill. Because one thing that parents sometimes are confused about when we talk about extended school year is they think it's the whole IEP gets implemented over that summer vacation, or let's say it's summer, and it's not. The IEP team deliberately talks about each one of these goals and the skills that those goals are being worked on with each one of those goals. And then they determine which one of the IEP goals will be worked on over the summer and then would therefore qualify for extended school year. Typically extended school year isn't, as the narrator said, isn't summer school. It typically looks much different. So someone who maybe had speech and language, if let's say speech and language was an area that regression was pretty common with a student. If the student received 30 minutes 3 times a week of speech and language during the school year, and they wanted to still work on speech and language goal in the summertime, it would not be 30 minutes 3 times a week. In all likelihood, it'll be for much shorter periods of time. And it's meant to prevent the student from regressing as much as they normally would had they not received anything over summer. So it doesn't look like the school year. It doesn't look about the same amount of time and that type of thing. And it's meant specifically to prevent the regression that normally is seen, because likely the student will still have some regression, but it won't be as much. So
Cheri,
does that make sense? Yep.
Is it true that they take data, some teachers take data on students after longer breaks like winter break or spring break?
Definitely.
To judge
Yep.
it?
Yep, definitely. And so let's say the student started, let's say the 3-year-old started this year, you know, let's say in November. And then you had winter break here, Christmas to New Year's. And let's say that just in that 2 weeks of time, teachers would have noticed, you know, when the student came back, gosh, they were able to do this and now they're doing this. And how long does it take for the student to get back to where they were before winter break? And so it's all about data collection. And so sometimes for little ones, it's hard, depending upon what time they start in the school year and how much time school staff have had, that it's not unusual for 3-year-olds, though in that first year, may not necessarily have access or be identified as needing extended school year, just because we don't have data to support it. Okay, so that sometimes does happen. But by the time the student is 4, that following year, we should have a lot of data over winter break, over spring break, over summer, the previous summer. So those types of things will have really good data, and we'll know how long it takes the student to get back to where they were before the break, okay? The other piece of extended school year that comes into play is school districts need to ask themselves, IEP teams need to ask themselves, so is the student's family doing some things that would help support that student over the summer as well? Because a lot of our families are very proactive and resourceful. And if you have your child signed up for a camp, looking at the camp and seeing what's offered there and how does that help the student, that may have some bearing as to how often the ESY occurs, how much of the ESY occurs, because if the family has some things going, I did things for my son, for instance, that kept him busy, kept him socially interacting with others, that he was working on speech and language, that we didn't work on his speech and language goals in regard to social interactions, but instead he had ESY in regard to articulation goals. So part of the conversation is not only do we look at regression and emerging skills, but we also look at, so what does the family have going on? Because some families have a pretty active schedule in the summer that the student actually does pretty well, and there's not always a need for ESY either. So there's no one size fits all. It looks different for every child. And in my experience, I've seen all sorts of different things occur. So Trish or Dawn or any other educator that's on right now, do you want to add to that?
You covered it pretty thoroughly, unless somebody else has something.
Well, this is Dawn, and I think I would just completely second everything you said, Cheri. And as a previous TVI, I just knew how important it was to maintain the data and progress, especially when students were learning Braille or literacy skills were involved, that progress monitoring was just a really hugely important decision when the discussions of ESY emerged, and then I would have data should the IEP team make the decisions. So I would just second what you said.
Yep. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Trish. Yeah, and yeah, it's a discussion that occurs in the IEP meeting. So just you know, depending upon when your child's IEP is held, sometimes we held a special meeting, or sometimes my son's special ed teacher and I would just meet and talk about some of the goals. So sometimes it wasn't the whole IEP team that made those decisions, but typically that decision on ESY usually occurs beginning in March. Those discussions occur because it's hard to make that decision in the fall, not knowing where the student will be, okay? So the more data we have to inform that discussion, the better decisions we make. Yeah, cool, all right. So with that, one of the tips that you heard about in the video that we watched was about being organized and having some place to keep everything. So that's why you guys all got the blue parent record file folder here as the resource where all the materials were placed. So this folder really does provide a way to organize materials so that a parent or a family can actually bring this to IEP meetings. I used to, years ago, before I joined WSPEI, I've been with WSPEI 18 years, but before that time, I used to bring my big, huge 3-ring binder. And maybe some of you have that same type of experience. God, I wish there were Google folders and all this other stuff, because it would make things so much easier. But I gained some real good muscle strength with all the binders I would carry to every IEP meeting because I wanted to be the most prepared. This expanded file folder works really, really well. And actually, this is what we're going to be going through in a little bit. You'll notice there's 7 dividers in this folder. And each one of the dividers, almost every one of them has some information on it in regard to the special education process. And then there are resources behind each one that I wanted us to kind of take a walk through today, because the resources in here are some key resources that will help you as a family, as a parent, or as educators, because I know we have some educators on this call as well, to share with families, because helping families feel like partners and coming to the table and be able to make decisions about their child with the rest of the IEP team is really, really important. And that's really what my grant's about as well. So, so at any rate, we're going to take a walk through this. So here's the activity, okay? So we've already divided up into 7 groups. So Jackie did a really nice job. We had the breakout rooms earlier when we first started the presentation here and had you guys go out and meet each other. Right now, we're going to have you go back out to those same breakout rooms. And this time, each group will take some time to review and explore the information on the divider that you're assigned and the items behind the divider, okay? And then together as a group, we'd like you to, it says identify 1 resource or item. There's only a couple of resources, maybe 2, 3 items behind most of these. So if we can pull them all out and you guys can just take a look at them and identify the resource or resources that you would like to share with the larger group when we come back and talk about it. And then also share why you chose that resource, how it might be used, or if you've used something similar to it. Because I really want this to be a discussion and a sharing of what has worked for others. So, so just keep that in mind. Typically we identify someone in the group to be the reporter. So someone who's going to speak on behalf of your breakout group. You certainly could identify multiple people too. It's totally up to you. So we're going to give groups 10 minutes to do the above activity before coming back to the larger group, and then we're going to share out, okay, throughout the rest of the presentation. So on this slide, we have the breakout rooms and what section you have. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to ask Jackie that when I say breakout room number 1, which says birth to 3, the individualized family support plan. So that's our first divider here. I'm going to ask Jackie just to identify by name who's in breakout room 1 so that people have a solid idea of what group they're in, what divider they need to look at, and what resources behind that divider. So breakout 1, Jackie?
Yeah, so breakout 1, we have Cassie, Engelhard, and Ella Floyd.
Okay, excellent. In breakout number 2, which is preschool transitions,
we have Jill Smith, Katie Hatfield, and Maria Chauville.
Okay, excellent. The third breakout room is the homeschool communications tab and the materials behind that.
So breakout room 3 has Julie Piper, Christine Grender, and Susie Thierfelder.
Okay, excellent. Section 4 is evaluations and reports. Who's in that breakout?
We have Joe Schumacher and Lexi Soholt and Rachel Canistraro.
Excellent. Breakout room number 5 is the individualized education program.
So in room 5, we have Julie Kowalowski, Katie Bake, and Roberta.
Okay. Breakout room 6 is on transition.
We have Julie Soholt, Shannon, and Stacy Wachel.
Right, and then finally the last section, which is the general information divider.
We have Callie Sue Vinson and Lori Pinkert and Maria. I just read by how they renamed themselves.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, so those are your breakout rooms, and any questions before we go to breakout? All right, so I have 1:51 approximately right now, so we'll come back together right around 2 o'clock.
Okay, opening all rooms now.
Have fun, everybody.
Shannon needs to click join. There you go.
And so does Roberta.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Do you want to
Nice.
pause the recording?
Yeah, I'm doing that now. There you go.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a fun time together in your breakout rooms. While you guys were gone, Jackie, Trish, and Dawn and I had some discussion here. And so one thing I want to do is let you know that we did add a few resources to the live binder, okay? Because the question was asked in regard to ESY, I'm going to share with you the live binder. So can you guys see my screen? Okay. So in the live binder here, the virtual preschool conference live binder. So click here for materials needed in the Navigating the Special Ed Maze. So you'll see that those resources are here in the live binder. And I just want to call your attention to, while you guys were gone in your breakout sessions, we added 3 DPI bulletins. So number one, I want to thank whoever asked the question in regard to extended school year. So to better answer your questions in regard to extended school year, DPI has information update bulletins available. And these are available for school staff. They're available to the public. And so this specific bulletin talks about extended school year services with children with disabilities. And what I find very helpful with this is it is arranged in a format that you have questions. And with each question, you can either click right here on the number, like what are ESY services? It'll take you to the answer, okay? School districts must provide each resident student with a disability a free, appropriate public education. And in order to provide FAPE, districts must ensure all children with disabilities receive special education and related services consistent with the provisions of their IEPs. And so special education and related services provided pursuant to an IEP beyond the limits of the school year are ESY services. So that's what ESY is. Then it goes into describing other elements, the school term, when is a school district required to provide ESY, and so on and so forth. So we just have only so much time to answer questions, but I just wanted to provide that as a resource to the group today. And as we talked further, we identified a few other resources that we thought would be important for all of you to have access to as well. So another one of the DPI bulletins that we've included in here is because we're talking about students with either blind or visual impairment. DPI has guidance and a bulletin, information update bulletin 11.01 in regard to statewide services provided by the Wisconsin Educational Services Program for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing and the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. So there's information in here in regard to services being provided for students with deaf and hard of hearing or WCBVI with blind and visual impairment. So there's information in here in regard to that bulletin. And then the final bulletin that we added in here is the legal requirements bulletin in regard to accessible educational materials, also known as AEM, for eligible students with disabilities. So this is in regard to making sure that students that have visual impairments have accessible formats by which to access books and other resources. And so there's actual guidance in here in regard to making sure that instructional materials are available to students with visual impairments. And it actually talks about the process for securing that. So we included that in here too. So just know that these are just 3 bulletins out of many bulletins at the Department of Public Instruction that parents and educators can access that provides guidance in regard to how to proceed in regard to special education topics and issues. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to take us into the presentation. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to that. So I didn't assign anyone the front of the file because I thought I would just kind of preview that for you. So in the front of the file, you're going to find a couple of resources that are beneficial and important. The one is the WSPEI brochure. This brochure describes what my grant does. We're all about partnerships and helping school staff and families work together for the benefit of students with disabilities. And so we've got a variety of different types of educational opportunities, access to resources and information. We are also available to help individual families anywhere in the state either problem solve and support those families as they encounter concerns and issues, or we're also available to help families access resources and other types of information. And on the back of this brochure, you're going to see a little map on the back. And that map describes the different CESAs. So I'm in CESA 1, which is southeastern Wisconsin, right in the southeastern corner. But just know there are 12 CESAs throughout the state. And in every CESA, there's at least one parent like me who's available to parents and educators in that CESA area to answer questions and to help with engaging families in special education. So if you go out to the WSPEI website, at the end of this presentation, you'll see WSPEI.org as our website. And like I said, that can help you find another WSPEI coordinator to talk to, or you can contact me and I can connect you with your local WSPEI coordinator as well. The other two items in this resource in the very front is the Procedural Safeguards for Families booklet. This is also known as your Parents' Rights brochure. Very, very important because it actually outlines what a parent's right, what parents' rights are in the special education process. Everything from accessing records to parental consent to mediation and facilitated IEPs and much, much more. So information in here is contained in there. And then the last item is the frequently used acronyms and terms list. Unfortunately, special education, just like any other area, whether it's medical, whether it's hydraulic engineering, everywhere we go, there's a different language, different set of resources, or different set of terms and acronyms that we have to learn in order to navigate the system. So this frequently used acronyms list is from the Department of Public Instruction. You are encouraged to ask your school district if they have their own acronym list. Sometimes school districts do have a list of key terms and acronyms. And the other piece for families, don't be afraid to ask the question, what does that acronym mean? We need to be able to understand what's being said in an IEP meeting. And I encourage you to get comfortable with asking questions. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. All right, so that's the front of the file. I'm gonna move on to the next section. And so whoever was in breakout 1, I'd like them to share what they found in this area and what resource they found most interesting, or if they want to talk about both items, either or. So I think we had 2 or 3 people in this room.
Yeah, I'm Ella Floyd, I'll speak. So there's just a couple items in here talked about. The big one, best resource was probably this Birth to 3 book, and it just went through like the program, the assessments, eligibility. And what we gathered mainly about it was just its early intervention. You know, it's the services that screen your child if they have any developmental delays, you know, and if they're evaluated and determined to meet that criteria, then they get to have, you know, these services. They come into your home or any other natural environment that child, you know, is in a day-to-day, and they work with the child, and they have a, what is it called? A IFSP plan, which is like, I feel like equivalent to an IEP just for, you know, the family and the child. And they come up with that plan. And I believe it's an annual plan. And then once after they're 3 years old, they graduate into the school district for early childhood.
Excellent. Yeah, I really like this book. I happened upon it a year or so ago. Didn't realize this book was out there, but would have been nice when my kids were in birth to 3 to have had a nice little book like this in the 1990s, long time ago. And what's really nice is the transition of children from birth to 3 to age 3. They have a nice little timeline in here too. And then on the back, for those that like QR codes and things like that, they've got QR codes in the back of this, which I think is so cool. Talk about technology being everywhere. Yeah, so even though I represent and work with families that have students 3 through 21, I find I have families that have little ones at home. So even though their 6-year-old has an IEP, they have little ones. And sometimes having a resource like this to give to a parent is really helpful. So thank you for sharing. Excellent. All right. And that individual family service plan, it really is about the family, very similar to an IEP. So, all right, next section is on preschool transition.
Hi, my name is Scott.
Okay.
Our group discussed the preschool transition from birth to 3. In our group, we had 2 children just under the age of 2. They're 20 months and 21 months. We're sort of in the middle of the 0 to the birth to 3 range. But the materials in this section are basically discussing milestones that the children can hit as they approach that preschool transition. So in our group, we were discussing there are a lot of different kind of milestone or similar documents to that, different skills that children are supposed to reach at different ages. There's a whole bunch of similar documents to that. So we're discussing how they're kind of useful as a guide to try to discover what type of activities or what type of learning goals you can have for kids at different ages. It can sometimes be a little bit difficult to adapt that to children with visual impairments, because obviously most of the resources, if you just go online and search for them, are going to be for normally sighted children. So it's a bit hard to gauge how useful it is depending on different visual impairments that children might have. So it can be a little bit hard to gauge those, but it can provide a useful infrastructure for goals to work towards.
Excellent. And so you're exactly right. When we're talking about students that are children that have visual impairments or are blind, those milestones become much more challenging. So not to put Trisha on the spot, but Trisha, are there other types of resources and things like that you have used as part of the outreach program that maybe would be more appropriate or more in line with helping families identify how their child is doing?
My favorite checklist to share with families, especially in the birth to 3, just because most of the staff like using the assessment part of it, is the Oregon Project for the Blind and Visually Impaired. The reason why that is my favorite, it's created from the Portage assessment. But what's different about this one is it really takes in consideration the results versus the vision. So if your child doesn't have any vision and it's part of the assessment to reach one of the milestones, it's taken out. And so the score isn't going to be affected just because the child can't see. So it's really nice. And it's all in developmental order of what usually is the checklist is what usually is achieved. So for instance, if you're looking at cognitive, I'm just trying to think if I can remember the specific benchmarks. They're gonna show you exactly what's typically developed first, and then you get to look at what's coming up. And so you can adjust activities in your daily life just to try to achieve those goals. And, you know, parents like to see that. Parents like to know what's coming up next in development, because, you know, then when they see it, they're just overjoyed. But if they don't know it's coming up, they may not even recognize that, wow, this is a development milestone, because most of the time they think more general than the specifics that are in that project.
Yep. That's good. I like that. And I'm not totally familiar with it, so I might be interested in kind of exploring that as well.
We have it in our professional development library that you can check out for free.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yep. And there's a CD in it, so you can input exactly where the child's at, and it'll give you a nice graph printout and everything. It's very, very convenient.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
The other thing I have in here is the Growing Wisconsin Readers, and you know, learning to read begins at birth, as it says in here, and anything we can do to encourage literacy in our children, with our children. So this is a nice little brochure that just emphasizes the importance of starting young and engaging in literacy development. So, all right. On section 3 is home and school communication. And who's in that group?
I'm going to take that one.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so there were 3 pieces of information in that one. And 2 of them, there's a brochure on the mediation system, and then another sheet on steps to success and how to communicate with your child's school, which is wonderful. And I highly suggest that the teachers out there read this too and go through it. I mean, the relationship between the parents and the teachers, the school, is just key. It's everything. And you want to keep it open and comfortable. And those were really 2 great resources. And if things are getting a little bit stressful, the mediation or ideas for how to temper that or prevent it are in there. And that's really good too. Our favorite one was the communication options for families from WSPEI. We really like that sheet. It's wonderful for parents to use and to fill in. But then we were saying as teachers too, what a great resource to have for each of our children to write down all that information. We really liked it for that too. I have a lot of kids on my caseload right now, and that would be just great to have that all right there at my fingertips. So we were really tickled with that, both sides of it, because it gives great information on the back of it and what to do if there are any problems. But the front of it, you can fill in all the information for who to contact and who's working with that child. So,
yep. Oh, I'm so glad that you guys were tickled with this one.
Yes, yes.
Because let me tell you, even though special education is all about educating the child and moving the child from where they're at to their future, one day after high school as adults, where will they be? And sometimes that's a long ways away and it's hard to think about it. But the one most important thing is this section, okay? The home and school communication. And I will say 99.9% of the time when parents call me and they're having trouble and they're having difficulties, there's a communication breakdown, okay? That there's a misunderstanding. It's not necessarily that the school isn't doing something or whatever. It's oftentimes we're not talking really well with one another, okay? And so communication is where it's at. This was developed by the WSPEI grant, the grant that I work for. And as you described, the one side is talking about what options you have if you have questions or you disagree with the decision of the school. And oftentimes families aren't always fully aware that you can call an IEP meeting more than once a year, you know, that you can have communications, that if you have questions or concerns that arise, how do you solve those? Because families oftentimes when they call and I ask, who have you talked to? They haven't talked to anyone yet. So I encourage families to always go back to your son or daughter's teacher. Whoever's closest to the concern or issue or question that you have, and go to them and ask them your question. All right.
I have a question in the chat, Cheri.
Oh, okay. I will look at that too.
About
okay.
the forms, if there's any fillable PDFs, and Rachel said if there's not, that she can convert it for you.
Oh, yep. So they do come in a Word document, so you can modify it, because what you see on this side with this nice little diagram and stuff like that is we have it in a Word document, because not every school or school district or organization like the School for the Blind has all these people, all these different personalities that are working in your school, right? So you have the ability, the school district has the ability to modify these boxes, change the titles, those types of things, to customize it to your school or to your community or to your situation, environment, okay? So yes, I do have that. I think I sent only the PDF version or attached. Actually, if you go to...
well, they're wondering if the Word one could be sent into the live binder.
Sure, yeah. And in fact, okay, I'm gonna step out of this and go into the virtual live binder. Okay, so one of the handouts I have in here is the top 10 resources for families. So I'm gonna open this up for you guys. And in this, you'll see the communication options for families form. Whoops, let me open this up so it opens up. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna open this up. And if you go into this Google Drive folder, you'll see, oh, it's only the PDF is in here. Okay, I thought I had the whole folder with all the Word documents in Spanish and Hmong and English, but I will send that to you guys, and I'll send it to Trish and make sure Trish has access to it then. Yeah. Yeah, so getting back to really communication is where it's at though, people. And so this side tells you what parents can do, how you can address questions just by emailing, by texting, by calling the teacher. Sometimes you do have to call a meeting though. If the situation is important enough or there needs to be a lot of discussion and brainstorming, calling a meeting and what can you do in that meeting? And then sometimes even with those meetings, things don't get resolved. And so that's where calling the mediation system, because is the issue, the concern or issue, the fact that parents are talking, school is talking, and neither one is hearing one another. So that tells me there's a communication issue. So that's where a facilitated IEP, having a third party come in and make sure everybody's talking to one another, listening to one another, and building that communication. So that's one option. If it's an impasse on a topic like amount of services, placement, eligibility, some big topics that you are at an impasse, the parent is at an impasse with the school district, bringing in a third party mediator, somebody who isn't connected with the school or the family, comes in and mediates that issue with the family and the school. Okay, and that's where this blue folder, this blue brochure that's included in this section talks about our mediation system. The mediation system, just to let you know, it's completely free. Doesn't cost the school district anything, doesn't cost the family anything. The mediation system is a third party system, not associated with families or school districts. There are over 20 mediators across the state that can come and mediate an IEP or a facilitated IEP. And both the parent and the school district have to agree on the mediator that is chosen, okay? There's a contact person on the back. Her name is Gia. Gia is the intake coordinator for the mediation system, and she would be the one to walk a parent or a school district through whether or not mediation or a facilitated IEP is necessary, how to choose a mediator, all that kind of jazz. So, and mediation and facilitated IEPs are just a piece of problem solving that are very positive things to do. They're not a negative thing. It's never a bad thing to call for a mediation or a facilitated IEP. If anything, it speaks to the fact that both parties want to work out the issue. Whatever the concern or issue is, both parties want to work it out when there's agreement to hold that, okay? Where we go, when parents file IDEA complaints because they say the school is not, or the school district is not providing the services and supports written in the IEP, or other things are going on, or filing a due process complaint against the school district, those types of resolution options result in somebody else making the decision for you. So it takes the decision out of the parents' hands, out of the school district's hands, and gives it to DPI or a hearing officer to make the determination as to who's right and who's wrong, okay? So I really encourage families to, with school districts, look at mediation or facilitated IEP as a way to resolve issues and concerns. Now I understand we have some chats here. If I'm not happy, I am more than happy to convert. Oh, that was Rachel. Would you be able to add it? Yes. Okay. Spanish copy is also available. Yes. And we also have Hmong available too. So those are the 3 languages that the communication options for families comes in. All right. So anyway, so this is where it's at, guys. Communication is so important. And I'm kind of curious. So for the parents that are on right now, in the chat, I want you to bring up the chat. And I'm really curious to know what your preferred mode of communicating with the school is. Is it phone? Is it email? Is it texting? Is it something else? I'm just kind of curious. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing how you like to best communicate with your child's teacher, and we'll say child's teacher, okay? So let's take a look at the chat. All right, emails.
Looks like emails are pretty popular.
All right. We do over text mostly. Okay, so emails are most popular. That's good, okay. But sometimes a phone call, and some families, because of technology, so that's one thing that has become really, really clear to us as we're trying to connect with families. And it's something that oftentimes educators have struggle with, is making sure that we know what the preferred communication. So if I need to get a hold of a parent, what's the fastest, quickest way, or what has the parent told me, is something that I always check or I always look for. So that's one of those things that I always talk to parents about when they call me is, have you had a conversation with your son or daughter's teachers as to your preferred mode of communication? Because if the school is using one mode and the parent doesn't use it or rarely uses it, there's going to be communication conflict. So I encourage school districts and educators also to always make sure that you're asking families what their preferred method is, because families are all different and unique, and who should I be contacting sometimes? Some students have extended family members that are oftentimes providing caregiving and things like that. So this is just so huge. This area is so huge. And like I said, this is where the bulk of the issue is there's a communication breakdown that then results in other things falling apart. So if we get the communication going, most of the time we can just about solve just about everything else. Okay, evaluations and reports. All right, who was in section 4, breakout 4?
That was our group, so I will talk about that a little bit. So inside the evaluations and reports, there is the tab that talks about it, but then there's 2 sheets that are questionnaires. One is a student snapshot sheet that is usually filled out by the parent, and then the other one is the snapshot sheet that would be filled out by your child if your child's old enough to do it. And so I have been through IEPs for my oldest son, and then recently for my visually impaired kid. And I would have liked to have a form like this. I mean, I got, emails that was like, what are your kids' strengths and things like that. But having a form would have been nice, because then it's like, I can just fill it out as I have time. And I don't think that every school gives out a form like this, but then Lexi in our group is a teacher, and she says that when she's done this, she's had to fill out forms sort of like this from her perspective too for the kiddos. So
excellent. Yeah. So these are 2 forms, especially the student snapshot for families that the parents would fill out. You'll see that that is the way it's structured is there are words on the right-hand side of the form. Like the first question, it says IEP, present level, needs, and transition. So this form is actually designed to follow the IEP. And so if a parent were to fill this form out in advance of an IEP meeting, send it to the rest of the team, because I encourage families to fill out a report on their child every year, because parents are experts in their child and what happens when the child isn't at school. And so having input from parents is really important. Parents are part of the IEP team. There are plenty of opportunities within the IEP for parent input. And so we've kind of directed IEP teams to, when you have a parent fill out this report, take a look at the information the family has filled out and see, can we add that into the report, or does that help to add additional context to the conversation that you're having in regard to the student in each one of these areas? We recommend that parents fill out whatever questions they feel they'd like to fill out. Some families aren't comfortable with filling out all 11 questions. So that's okay. So whatever they're able to fill out. On the back side, question 10, what is the best way to communicate and share resources with your family? That one we ask all families to fill out, because we, again, getting back to the last section where we're talking about homeschool communication, we really want to make sure that those lines of communication are open with the family. But this is really, really nice to have. I'm glad you reported out that you've been through IEP meetings in the past with your older child, and it would have been nice because oftentimes parents don't know how to prepare or what to prepare. And this is a nice way to get us in, to get our juices flowing for thinking about that conversation about what would we like to see for our child, and what do we know about our child that maybe we can share with school staff. So thank you for sharing out. The other thing I just want to point out here is this particular divider, evaluations and reports, has a lot of information about the 3 types of evaluation that are available in the IDEA that are identified. The first one is the initial evaluation after a child has been referred for a special ed evaluation. We have the initial evaluation. So that is identified here, really spelled out really, really nice. The reevaluation, which was talked about in the video, is once every 3 years. Typically reevaluations occur to determine if the student still qualifies for special education, and if there have been any changes in the child's needs in regard to special education. And then the third type of evaluation is the independent educational evaluation. And that's at the very bottom. And that's what parents may ask for if, for instance, you do an evaluation and parents disagree with the findings of the evaluation, because the evaluation for some reason found, for instance, maybe the student didn't have those particular needs or whatever, and that impacted the types of services and supports the student would get. So parents have the ability to request an independent educational evaluation at public expense. So they make that request of the school district. The school district typically has a list of outside evaluators that are not district personnel. So district personnel do not do these independent educational evaluations. They're actually done by people outside the district in regard to a particular area that the parent disagrees with. And so parents are allowed that one independent educational evaluation. The results come back. The IEP team gets together, looks at those results, and then there may be changes done to the IEP as a result of it, or there may not be any changes. So just know that there are some guidelines in regard to how requesting an IEE, and that is listed on there at the DPI website as well.
We have a question, Cheri, wondering if the snapshots are also available in the Word doc.
Yes, they are. So I'll send those to you too.
Okay.
Yep. I think I shared everything in PDF just so it's cleaner, because sometimes Google kind of whacks things out. So I think that's why I sent everything in a PDF this time, just to keep it clean. But I will send everything in a Word document, because they are modifiable. Yep. All right, next section is IEPs. Who do we have?
Hi, my name is, this is Nick and Katie. We had a good group with us that we were discussing this. There was one of the points that was brought up. There was a brochure in there that was called the College and Career Reading. That was a nice perspective, because sometimes we feel like, even though we're just starting our process and our children are young and they're just coming into the IEP, to always be focusing on goals that are for college and career readiness. One of the members of our team discussed, actually, as her child got evaluated, friendships and social interaction was one of those goals related to college and career readiness, which I thought was a very knowledgeable point. The one specific resource that we thought was best for people to take a look at was this IEP checklist form. We thought, as we get bombarded by all this paperwork and all of these different forms and things, this really simplifies it down to the point where you can check boxes as you're prepared for it. Kind of a good screener for you going into the process as a parent, understanding all of the different facets of what happens within the IEP.
Excellent. Thank you for that share out. Yeah, this is a wonderful resource, the Wisconsin Facets IEP checklist. Really spells it out in a really nice way, each part of the before an IEP meeting, during an IEP meeting, after an IEP meeting. Really nice reminders in here. Yeah, I've really liked how they set this up. They even talk about in here, which is the next section, when your student is 14 and over, there's a section on there about transition planning. So some really nice tips in there too. Yeah, so I'm glad you pointed this out. The college and career readiness, sometimes when you have little ones, it's hard to think about the future, but you're so right. The social, being socially ready and thinking about the future really ties in really well, that it's not just about reading and math and knowing all the academics. it's having those skills to be able to be with other people and to communicate and to work, and all those functional life skills that are so important in regard to when we think about the future and being not necessarily only college and career ready, but community ready. So being able to just be a community member and citizen. The other booklet is Introduction to Special Education, which is just like the video that you all saw before. So this is the Cliff Notes version of special education. So this is short and sweet and gives you all of the, you know, basic information that a parent needs to know about the special education process. So something like this booklet's free from the Department of Public Instruction. And anybody new to special education, this is my go-to book for parents. All right. So that takes care of our IEP section. Let's go to transition planning.
Well, I guess I'll take this one. The booklet that is in this is called Wisconsin Transition Resource Guide. And it looks to be a very nice resource, kind of directly headed towards teens, and of course for their families to assist them. But a lot of the activities in here look for things that the teen themselves can try to work through. Part of it is through your school and to decide, you know, what your educational goals are, or if you're looking to go more into the workforce right away. There's information about where you can find information about employment. There's one that says it's called vocational rehabilitation, and which is good to know that for students and parents alike, that one it says you should be sure to apply for a services at least 2 years before graduation. Yep. There's a section on the disability resource centers, aging and disability. And that kind of covers, it looks like all aspects that that are related to living with disabilities, and they can also help like apply for certain programs and benefits. Mm-hmm. And then towards the back, there's a section that's called Essential Services. And it just talks about, there's a little section for the youth that's, you know, about to go into adulthood to actually fill out an activity and different things for self-advocacy so that they know, you know, they have to speak up for themselves and different ways to go about that. And then there's a benefits specialist or a benefits section. They can start to learn about different benefits that as they turn age 18 that are available to them. Some of their Social Security benefits may change, food share, housing, Medicaid, things like that. Then there's a section on money, you know, how to plan, save, spend, how to manage your money. What else we got here? Some job skills, health and wellness. That's a good one that it talks about your food, exercise, physical activity, sleep, stress, things like that. And at the very back, there's a resource directory that's got some nice little sections on community living, employment, health, Social Security, transportation, some websites that are available for the young adults.
Cool. Thank you for that. Absolutely wonderful. So this is like, I wanted to put something in there because I knew this was the preschool conference and so many families have kids that are younger, but you might have some older kids as well. But this was put together by Wisconsin Promise a few years ago. And I just find it to be a really nice, easy to digest resource for families to kind of start to get their hands around what transition planning is all about. So it is for students and their families. And in some sections, there's actually activities as were described in here to help them think about those different aspects. So this is available in Spanish and Hmong as well. And this is actually free from, if you go out to the beforeage18.org website, on the back of this Wisconsin Transition Resource Guide, there is a place that these books can be ordered, and they are free. Really, really nice. I'm also guessing that David Ballman, who is part of your outreach team, as well as David Hyde, are two excellent resources and excellent parent liaisons that I've worked with over the years that can certainly guide families in regard to IEPs and that type of thing. And then David Ballman, I know his focus is transition planning. So he's someone you guys are really going to want to connect with. But he probably knows of a whole lot of more resources that he encourages or shares with students and families from his perspective as well.
Cheri, there's a question about wondering, can they get pamphlets that are in their folders from WSPEI? And is there a cost to getting any of the booklets or flyers from you?
So so at the very end, when we go back into the resource binder, the live binder, there's actually there should be a form that links in where these resources can be gotten from. So I'll make sure that you have those, and you can send them out to staff. A lot of the booklets and things like that are free of charge. And so I give those links as to where to find them. So for instance, the growth charts are, I think, from the CDC, the preschool, families are the foundation. This is from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. I just ordered them and they sent me a bunch. So a lot of the resources are like free, and or if any of the documents that WSPEI has provided, I'll just send those out and those can be printed. If you need blue parent record file folders, I can send you more of these because I have these in stock. And there's no cost for them either, for the blue parent record file folders. But otherwise,
nice. Thank you, Cheri.
Okay, yeah. So the last section, we've got special education in plain language, and that there's actually a cost associated with that one. So I can get all that information to you, Tricia, and then you can send that on to staff. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay. All right. Last section, general information. Who do we have here?
Hi, I can go. So my name is Maria, and under the general information, there's several items. Two that stood out include the pamphlet that was just mentioned, the special education in plain language, which is quite extensive. It's nice. It breaks down pretty much any question or topic you could possibly have. And then what it has 4 main columns. So the first one says what the law says, and then what the law means, what needs to be done, and then what the parents need to know or do. So it's a really, really nice handbook and provides a lot of guidance. And then the second item that stood out is this training calendar. And so it looks, there appears to be over 100 free workshops and webinars for families pretty much every month, it looks like, of the calendar. And some of the workshops include like IEP series, and then also a self-advocacy series that that seemed pretty interesting. And yeah, so that looks great, something to check out for everybody.
Excellent, Maria. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so special ed in plain language, very comprehensive. And for those of you that really want to know what the statutory, what the law says and what it means and what schools are to do and what parents need to know, this is the book, okay? And I use this to help families understand the special education process. So really, really good book. And I'm so glad you pointed out Wisconsin Facet's training calendar. The IEP sessions, so if you look at this, like coming up, let's see, let's look at next week on the 26th, IEP2, Special Education Referral Process. So that's from 12 to 12:30. So Facets did a great job this year, well, actually starting last year, is they did these 30-minute workshops on different elements of the IEP process. These are absolutely free. They're always over the noon hour. And if you're not available during the noon hour, I still recommend that you register for it, because about 2-3 hours after it's done, they send you the recording, because they record every webinar. And then you're able to listen to the presentation done by Jan Sarek. Jan was one of their founders of Wisconsin Facets about 26 years ago, 30 years ago, somewhere in there. And so she does these 30-minute workshops, and they're like 2 a month or something like that. And these are meant for parents, educators, agency people, anybody who's interested. You'll see there's a ton of other topics on here that are typically presented by other agencies, by DPI staff, by experts in a variety of areas on a variety of topics. And so these are all completely free. So please let other families know about this. Please let other educators know about this. And if you see something that happened in January, earlier in January, and you're like, oh, bummer, I missed the mediation one on the 4th of January, go out to Wisconsin Facet's website and go under training calendar. Look for their training calendar, and you'll find all their webinars that have been recorded on their website. So super, super cool. Yeah, so anyway, that there are a couple other brochures in there as well that I'd want to share with you and that type of thing, but just know they're there. All right. Other things just to point out that at the very end here, Spanish parent record file is available. So we have this in Spanish as well, this blue parent record file. And we also have communication options in Spanish, the student snapshot and my snapshot in Spanish, introduction to special ed in Spanish, special ed in plain language in Spanish, and quite a few other resources, because Spanish has become our second language here in the state of Wisconsin for many school districts. So just know that that's a resource that I can help provide. I put the links in here for the video, Introduction to Special Education, as well as that little booklet that was under IEPs. That booklet is in there as well. And then your last resource that I had here today is the top 10 resources for families. And that was another handout in the front. It's a one-pager. I'm going to click on this. If I can get back over here. I'm going to open that up. And if it opens, there we go. Okay. So you'll see that many of the resources that we had in the Blue Parent Record file are on here. The only things that are different on here is there is a link to the DPI website, DPI agencies and organizations. So not only do you have WSPEI and Wisconsin Facets, but there's Parent to Parent, there's Family Voices, Family Ties of Wisconsin, Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs Network, Alianza Alas in Milwaukee for Spanish speaking families, and so many other agencies. So that is included as a resource on this list. And then the other item that is really important is the Andrew F. Talking Points. So I'm just going to open this up really quick and share with you this resource. So this particular resource, Andrew F. Advocacy Talking Points, is as the direct result of a Supreme Court case that was decided back in, I want to say 2017, roughly. And it was all about a student not making progress on their IEP. And year after year, the same goals would be written in the IEP and the student wasn't making progress. So a decision was made by our Supreme Court in favor of the family. And so the school district ended up paying the family for the private school tuition that the family had to put out for their child, because they removed them from their school district and put them in a private school. And suddenly in the private school, the child is learning to read and making games. And all the time while in the school district, the child made no progress. And so as a result of that, this is something that DPI has approved and would like us to share with families to really help families have conversations at the IEP table with IEP teams about, is my child making progress? Is this IEP helping my child move toward meeting their goals? And so this is a document that helps families kind of prepare for that conversation to think about, so where is my child at below grade level? And why do I think the IEP as it's currently written isn't helping my child reach their goals or reaching grade level standards? And so you don't have to answer every question, but you may find one of these 8 questions in these pages really pertain to your situation. And then at the bottom of each one of these, what can you say? So they actually give you a script as a parent. So to take some of the emotion out of it, and so that you come across collaborative, you can say, I know the IEP is supposed to help my child achieve grade level standards, but my child is behind in reading or math. What can we do to help my child reach grade level? So it's just a really, really nice document to help families navigate and prepare for an IEP, to discuss about progress on their IEP goals. All right, and it's 3:02, and I apologize for going 2 minutes over, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions. Otherwise, please feel free to send me an email. Cheri Sylla, I'm at CISA1, and it's my C is for Cheri and last name Sylla at CISA1. And then to find your local WSPEI coordinator, we have the WSPEI.org website here, and it's not working right now. I cannot open it up. But WSPEI.org/contacts. And if you go out to our WSPEI website, you can look for your CISA area, and phone numbers and email addresses of all of our coordinators in each one of our 12 CISAs are there as well. All right, questions?
Don't be shy.
I got a question. How do we get more of these parent record files?
So if Trish wants a box, I can send them her way, or you could send me an email and let me know, because I had 3 kids with IEPs, so I needed 3 of them.
We've got 7 with, and 3 possibly with IEPs. So.
Okay, so if you want to send me an email and say, hey, Cheri, I was part of your workshop on Saturday, and we have we need a couple more blue parent record files. I can send empty ones out to you because you have copies of all the resources. You don't need additional copies, but I can send you out some empty folders. Cool. Excellent.
Thank you, Cheri.
You're welcome. And if you want a box, Trish, just let me know because I can send you a box too.
Sure. And then I can copy what I can.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Doesn't look like anything yet. And make sure to check your live binder on Monday, and Cheri and I will work together on getting those other things uploaded in the Word format and the different languages.
Yep.
Especially Spanish, right? So that would be the snapshot and the communication form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're going to upload more of.
Yep, that sounds great. And if you guys have any questions at all or anything like that, well, I know Trish is a wonderful resource and she knows so much more than I do, but I'm always
you're one of my
here to
resources,
help.
Cheri.
I'm always here to help. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does, because that's part of my job is not to know the answers, but to know where to find the answers and who to talk to. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This was an amazing session. I know looks like some people need to move their bodies a little bit, but.
Yeah. Thank you for your participation, everyone, for
yes.
Engaging in conversation and sharing out and things like that. And I just want to thank Trish and the whole crew for inviting me again to be a part of your preschool conference. So good luck.
Thank you, Cheri.
Of the sessions. Yep.
Thank you, Cheri. Thank you very much. And please, we're always looking for any information that you can provide in the evaluation. I'm going to send you out the link right away. And if you can it only takes a minute. There's only a few questions on there, but if you could give us your input, we would appreciate it. And I will definitely share that information with Cheri too. So